Hey, when Michael Thomas contacted you about being part of the video, what was your kind of first reaction? And now that you're kind of a leader and a face of the National Football League, what kind of responsibility is that for you?
When he first reached out to me, I thought it was a great idea. He actually needed a couple more guys that he was just trying to see, who had, the most influence, who would be willing to, put their name out there. And so it was kind of good to see a bunch of guys, with great influence throughout the NFL, be a part of that. I think our social responsibility, I think it goes far beyond the football field. I think we have a true impact in our communities. I think we're able to influence, masses of people. For us, it's about, owning that and doing it the right way, and being conscious that the only way we're going to ever get any kind of change is if both sides, are willing to change. And so that's the biggest thing, is to, fall forward together.
Let's go to Harold Kuntz. Go ahead, Harold. There you go. Go ahead.
Hey, I hope you're doing all right, man. Obviously, I saw what you did for your New Orleans community with what you're doing with, paying the rent and everything for some families down there. Just did this kind of encourage you to do even more than what you were doing? You do so much within the community, but did this kind of be a call to action for you to even do even more and try to step up and make others step up as well? Just what you're doing off the field as well?
Yeah, I mean, I always preach, to my guys, to my teammates, former teammates, how important it is for those guys to use their platform. Some of those guys come from big cities. Some of those guys come from small cities. And I think if all of us reached back, we were all kind of important in our communities at one point in time. And it's important for us to never forget that. And even with that said, us being where we are today, it's important for us to go back into our communities and, educate them, continue to push those guys forward. And I think this right here, everything's going on. I think a lot of guys are going to step up. It's going to be much more than guys, pitching football camps back home. I see a lot more guys really getting involved in their communities, really trying to push it forward.
Let's go to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Tyrann, I hope you're doing well. You talked a minute ago about the player video that you were involved with Michael Thomas and everybody. Were you aware when you did that or agreed to do that, what kind of impact that video would have?
I didn't. Us as football players, we don't really think like that. We tend to just do things and, whether they have a good or bad effect. I don't think the intentions of the video wasn't to necessarily be, heroes. I think ultimately we saw ourselves as the guys to say something. And I know for a lot of us, it's been going on a while, and it's probably, most of us would consider this the second time around. And the first time around, a lot of us didn't speak up. A lot of us wasn't vocal for many reasons. I just think right now, collectively, everybody just wants to see everything pushed forward the right way. And I think it's important.
Let's go to Sam Mellinger. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah. Hey, Tyrann, thanks for – sorry, kids are in here. Thanks for the time. But I want to expand actually just on what you just mentioned. Like you said that some of you would consider this a second time around and a lot of people weren't vocal. Why is this different? You guys just feel more empowered? Are you just more fed up? You more aware of your influence? What's the difference now?
I think people are tired. I think the first time around, a lot of people wasn't necessarily aware. I think when Kaepernick and those guys did what they did, they just did it. I don't think that they necessarily made every player on every team aware of what they were going to do. And I just feel like right now it's a more overall concern amongst all players and I think most of us understand that we all could have been, Colin Kaepernick in the sense that, we wouldn't be playing football anymore. So I think all of us are just taking it, personal in the sense that, yes, that could have been us, but what are we going to do about it going forward? And I think that's where we're at right now.
Let's go to Vahe. Vahe, go ahead.
Thanks, Brad. Hey, Tyrann. Just a few minutes ago, we saw Andy Reid speaking with what I thought was pretty passionate and sincere discussion of his feelings about race, and it made me think that is a little bit of how he connects to you guys. Have you felt particular inspiration from him during this, or connection with him about these sorts of things in the past?
I mean, I've always respected, Coach Reid, really outside of the, the football field, even if you're able to work with them, you could see the kind of impact he has on everybody, including minorities, and the kind of opportunities that he's offering these people. So I think, for me personally, I always knew where Coach Reid stood, and I think he's always on the side of right. He's always on the side of what's fair, and I think most importantly, he's about his players. So. It's been good to kind of talk to those guys, talk to Clark Hunt, Mark, Brett, have that open line of communication where you're able to talk about, tough topics, and it's important, going forward that we're able to continue to do that because we have such a good football team. We have a lot of young guys. We have, a few older guys, but for the most part, most of us are comfortable with each other. And so it's important to kind of continue to, push each other forward, fall forward together, knowing that, we do have a real family here. It's a real family atmosphere, and, it can be sensitive. So, it's important for us to collectively push forward.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Tyrann, thank you for taking some time with us. I was curious, in your words, you're always a thoughtful guy, and you're a guy with kids. You started with the video the other day. What do you have to see both in the NFL and the world, say a year, 2, 3 years from now, to say, okay, I think we really accomplished something here? Yeah,
I think, ultimately you would like to see, obviously you would like to stop seeing, people killed, on video, whether it's on video or not. You would like to see more people step up, no matter what side of the fence they're on. And I think most importantly, like I continue to mention, it's all about us coming together, collectively. And we all come from different parts of the world. We all come from different spaces in our lives. And I think the most important thing to understand is that, in order to move forward, we're going to have to love each other. We're going to have to listen to each other. We're going to have to, begin to understand each other. And I just look at the world as such a big place, such a beautiful place. And if we're able to come this far, with so many issues, imagine, how far we can go if everybody collectively works together. I think one of the things, we're going to do, myself and the Chiefs included, which I've talked to Clark about this, but if we're able to really, impact, voter registration, if we're able to really give those people a voice, and really allow those people to really go into their communities and really select their leaders, elect their leaders. And I think that's going to be very, very important going forward. I think if you want to change anything, you're going to have to educate people on what it is that they have to do to change things. And a lot of times, it's a lot more than just protesting. You have to really find a call to action. And I think voter registration, I think that can impact a lot of people. I think that can really, see good change.
Let's go to BJ Kissel. Go ahead, BJ.
Hey, Tyrann, thanks for the time. Along those same lines, you talk about voter registration. Just why was that the kind of thing that you guys as a group landed on? I know there's a lot of different things out there. What was it about that one in particular that just kind of resonated with you guys as a group? And then I have one quick follow-up.
Yeah, I think, I think we can sit here all day and, talk about a lot of different things, right? And most of those topics are very sensitive. They're very tough conversations. And I think voter registration isn't one of those conversations. I think it impacts everybody. I think everybody can, be a part of that. And like I mentioned, if people could really, even guys like myself and more guys like me, if we can make voting cool, if we can make that a trendy thing, then, we're really changing the future. We're really setting these kids up for a great future. We're really allowing these kids to, access to more opportunities. offering these kids more education and more resources. And I think the way to do that is to put people in office that are going to do that. And one of the probably the most important thing is, to vote. And so, but a lot of folk don't think that's cool. And maybe we can make that a cool thing again.
And the quick follow-up is, what is your message to people that have the best of intention, who want to help, who want to do the right thing, but as you mentioned, the call to action? What's your advice to those people who want to help but don't know where to start?
Man, just throw your hand. I mean, it's so many huddles. There's so many different entities that you can just throw your hand in. There's so many different services that you can volunteer for. So many different foundations. That I do a lot of stuff in the community. So if anybody's looking to do something, they could just holler at me. But yeah, man, so many different things. So many different people offer so many different things, and it's going to be up to us whether or not we want to support that, whether we want to get involved with, certain community affairs. And, which I hope that a lot of people, I hope a lot of players, I hope a lot of athletes and entertainers, I hope we use this time to make those things cool. Going back to our community centers, really putting money into those places, after school study halls, making sure that these recreational parks are funded, the right way, making sure those guys have equipment, making sure those guys are, making sure those guys have transportation. It's just a lot of ways that we can really help, people that don't have it. And people that don't have it aren't only Black folk, they're white folk too. They're Asian, they're everybody. So I think it's going to take a total group effort. I think the whole world is at attention right now, and it's the perfect time for all of us to help out anyone. It can be anybody. So
Let's go to Herbie Teope. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Tyrann, thanks a lot for doing this. Good seeing you. I want to ask you the same question I asked Patrick Mahomes. As with any message, you're always going to have your share of supporters and your share of detractors. But, given the platform that you have, what would you tell the folks who sit on the stick to sports side of the house so they are able to hear the message?
It's hard. Like I said, a lot of us are, deep in our communities. We feel the need to, speak up, for our communities, about our communities. It's up to us to defend our community, to defend certain people, to shift certain narratives, to shift certain perspectives about, my people. So, like I said, I'm excited about where this world is, even though, dealing with COVID and then falling into this, it's been tough on everybody. And I just hope that we all can really use this time to collect ourselves. First of all, I think we're most powerful, when we're calm and collected. And, from there we can make great decisions. We can do great things with our actions. And I think that's most important.
Okay, let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Tyrann. Good to see you, man. I know you mentioned about how making change happen needs to come from, people being more educated. When you get the opportunity to speak to Clark Hunt about this specific topic, whether it's Clark or even Mark Donovan, what did you want them to listen from you so that you feel like they were educated about your viewpoints and your perspective as it relates to Black Lives Matter and obviously the, sort of the protests going on in America and what the NFL can do to help change the community?
Yeah, well, he asked me, me and Clark had a great conversation. He asked me, what was it he can do to help me, to help people. And, for me, it's been that, voter registration, and I think if we can really do that, if we can really, impact the polls and really make it fair too. A lot of local communities, a lot of small communities, Black communities, even those people that are voting, it's a hassle, 2-3 hour wait. So if we could really get a program going, man, to get behind that, to be the first ones to make that thing cool, and then to see 30 other football teams do it and 30 plus, basketball teams do it. And, I think that right there, because a lot of sports teams are, it's full of minorities, it's full of kids from Black communities, it's full of those people from urban areas. And, it's going to be our duty, it's our responsibility, man, to understand that, yeah, we do have $1 million and we can, fix some things to a certain extent, but to really make change, to really see our kids have a future, to really see young Black minorities, to let any minority, hold great seats of power and great offices. I think that comes through voter registration. Young kids going to the polls is no different than players going to a football game. I want to be like a football player. Well, if these kids start to go to polls and they start to see, these Black senators or these minority people that, have come from these certain spaces and yet they're here to help them. I can only imagine, how many great people this world will really, really begin to breed,
Okay, let's go to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Tyrann, you talked earlier about the movement maybe a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick was maybe leading the peaceful protest, and it seemed like you maybe had some regret about how you handled that situation back then, or what your involvement was with that situation back then. Did I read that right? Number one, and what did you do back at that time, and were you at all concerned back then about maybe the consequences to yourself or your career if you did become more involved?
Nah, I didn't. I didn't think about my career. I think I was in a different space than most people. I think what I had was fragile. I had went through a lot to get to where I was at, and for me, it was about continuing to turn a certain corner. But that was my focus was on. It was making me a better person. Trying to be the best teammate. Trying to avoid negative headlines. And so my focus as I grow older in this league, I'm mature enough to understand that a lot of things are beyond me, and it's okay to go beyond me. To help people. It's not about just me fixing myself or building myself up or making sure I'm strong enough to handle my life. I think at many times in our life, people are going to need us. I've reached out to a couple of those guys who've it's unfortunate, but those guys aren't playing football anymore. And for me, it's a respect thing. I think I'm at a different space right now where I'm able to kind of understand, more things in the NFL. It's not just about Tyrann Mathieu, the player, staying straight, not getting suspended. I think my priorities are bigger now versus when I was, 24 years old,
All right, guys, we've got time for a few more. We'll go Ruth, Tyrann, and then Herbie to close us out. Go ahead, Ruth.
Sorry about that. I was going to unmute myself. Hey, Ty, how are you?
Good.
These have been really tough times. First we hit COVID, and then we hit all the unfortunate things going around George Floyd's death. You've got kids. These are tough conversations. How have you approached this with your own children, and any advice you'd share?
Yeah, I teach my kids to love themselves, to really love themselves. I think, if we're able to love ourselves, appreciate ourselves, we're able to really accept other people for who they are. We understand that that's not a reflection of who we are. So for me, it's all about educating my kids on love, man. Teaching them to love themselves, teaching them to love their neighbors. And then it's like the greatest rule of all. It's just, always have respect for people, always have respect for environments. Even when your environment's negative, you can show great respect by leaving, And so that's what I try to teach my kids. And they're still young, but I think they're at the age, 6, 7, where they're kind of understanding certain things. And so, but ultimately, for me, it's about teaching those young kids to love themselves, to love their friends, to love the life they live, and to ultimately respect everyone. So I think that's really what I'm preaching to my young kids.
Let's go to Tyrann. Go ahead, Tyrann.
Tyrann, thank you for your time today. You talked a little bit about going back to what was done with Colin Kaepernick and some other players joining in, and clearly, right, that didn't fix everything, because here we sit today. Along the way, it was very, very clear that the NFL worked against that movement. Roger Goodell basically said as much in his response to your video. What do the owners need to do to keep this movement alive, to be on board? Does it include Colin Kaepernick having a job in the NFL? Does it include them embracing players that want to peacefully protest in and around the games? What would you like to see the players do? You mentioned people look at you as a player and say, well, you may have $1 million. Well, I can look at the owners and say they have $1 billion. So what needs to come from the owners in your mind for them to continue this so that we're not 4 years from now having the same conversation after watching another video?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. You know, I think Colin Kaepernick, you know, I had the luxury to play against him earlier in my career. Definitely feel like he's worked, you know, being a part of any NFL team, whether it's a starter or a backup. Along those lines, I think what the owners can do and they can continue to do is continue to listen to their players like they have been. You know, continuing to take, can take our honest opinion, you know, on a lot of things. And because they do, you know, have the finances and have the, you know, political pull to really see to a lot of change. And I think that's going to be, you know, very, very important, you know, going forward, is that, you know, players not feeling like they can't, you know, speak to upper management about, you know, certain issues that they may truly be passionate about. You know, I think some of these players are, you know, I think half of their passion is football, and then others, you know, they have passion for other things. And for some people, it's, you know, seeing change, you know, seeing equality. And so, you know, I think it's a lot of things that the owner could do, the owners can do. I think most importantly is to, you know, obviously offer, you know, Colin Kaepernick a tryout. Hopefully he's in somebody's camp this year. And then, you know, obviously continue to see minority coaches continue to rise, you know, throughout this league, throughout this game. And because that's going to be very important. You know, a lot of these coaches, you know, whether they're white or black, you know, they do a lot for the team. A lot of the culture, a lot of the attitude, a lot of the environment, a lot of the structure comes from, you know, assistant coaches. So to be able to continue to see certain guys move through the ranks, that'll always be great for us. And, you know, continuing to see our, you know, superstars step up, you know, whether they're white or black. I actually reached out to Drew Brees. You know, he had been somebody I had admired, you know, my whole life. You know, I still remember the day, you know, he brought the championship to New Orleans. I think I was like 17, 18. You know, I went straight to Bourbon Street. I had to go celebrate, you know. But I've watched him do so much for the community. And so I still hold that respect for him. So, you know, and it's going to be important for guys like him to continue to speak up and fall forward because he do so much for the community. He do so much for black folk, my folk, you know, down in New Orleans. You know, I always admire him. You know, when I'm not there, he's the one, you know, really holding that responsibility. So it's going to be important, you know, for us to continue to fall forward together. Like I said, that's how I think we're going to be stronger together. That's how I think we'll see, you know, real change. And, you know, it's a great world we live in, but I think it can be so much better. And, you know, I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
All right, Herbie, you want to go ahead and close us out?
Sure. Hey, Tyrann, a two-part question here for you. I know you're a football player and you want to get back to the football season. How comfortable are you with the NFL's protocols to bring players back? And the second part to that is, how do you approach the break between next week and the start of camp, knowing that coronavirus is still a threat out there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, you know, I just obviously, you know, my rule number one every day I wake up is to protect my family, you know, so definitely wouldn't want to be, you know, bringing anything back home, to, you know, to my family. But, you know, along the other lines, man, I miss football. It's been too long, you know. I'm excited about it. I actually talked to somebody today. I don't think I ever checked out. I'm still like in football mode, and I think that's a good thing for me. So it don't matter when we start. I'm gonna be ready to roll. I'm excited about it. A lot of my teammates are excited about it. Even though this off season has been, you know, a little bit different than most. I think we've actually got a little bit better. I think we got a little smarter. So hopefully most guys have been using this time to make sure their body is right, making sure their mind is right. Because we have been through a lot these last couple months, and to go to football season, you know, it's going to take great leadership. It's going to take great accountability for everybody, for all 32 teams. You know, it's going to be a lot on a lot of people's mind. And I think us as a team, you know, we got to be able to use that as our advantage. We got to be able to lock in really, be there for each other, so I'm looking forward to it.
Tyrann, we appreciate you taking the time today, my friend. Hopefully we get to see you soon.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.